Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. I'm actually at Freetown Farm. We're going to be putting in fruit plants. It's mid-September. It's a great time to put them in Maryland Zone 7 or in similar zones. So the whole idea of getting in blackberries, blueberries, fruit trees, and even figs, I'll talk about all four of them, is that you want to get them in as the season's cooling down. The root systems are going to grow and establish, but you don't have a lot of top growth. So now's a really good time to transplant these plants into your garden. So let me talk about each of the four plants. This is not going to be a planting video, but I want to give you some really good tips to help make sure that you get these started off right in your garden. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be doing planting videos, but you just dig the hole about this much further around whatever the circumference of the container is, and then maybe this much more at the bottom. Loosen up the soil, dig out the soil, 2 or 3 handfuls of organic granular fertilizer, drop in the plant. When you put in the organic fertilizer, just mix it through the bottom. Drop in the plant, pull some soil around it, water it in. Water them 2 or 3 times a week because you really want to make sure that the root systems stay moist. And that's the whole goal. The whole goal is to establish a great root system over September through October, November, December, all the way into the spring. So when these plants finally get the right weather of spring, they could have great top growth. So let's just talk about some of the basics. So your your blackberries are going to come in vines. The first year vines are going to grow, they're not going to fruit. They'll overwinter. The second year wood, bramble, is going to produce the fruit. And then once it produces fruit in that second year, it's going to die off, you'll have new growth. So it's every other year the bramble is going to produce the blackberries. So you'll cut off the dead ones, you'll be able to identify them pretty easily. But the first year you might have a lot of new growth, and in the second year is when you're going to get a lot of your blackberries. Hopefully I have the same blackberry. These are blackberries. You also want to pick thornless blackberries. There's all different kinds. Arapaho is a great one, and they also clump, so they don't send out a lot of runners. The brambles will get at least 4 feet to 6 feet tall, so you'll need a way to trellis them, but get the clumping or erect variety blackberries. I recommend the Arapaho, but you can find different ones and ones without thorns. Now blueberries, you're going to need 2 different varieties at least. And the thing that's important about the blueberries is you have early blueberries, mid blueberries, late blueberries. That's just when they bloom. So if you get 2 varieties, you get an early blooming variety, an early producing variety, and a late season producing variety. Those flowers are going to come at different times, so they're not going to cross-pollinate each other. So if you're going with early blueberries, 2 kinds of varieties. If you're going with late blueberries, 2 kinds of varieties. And if you're not sure, you can get an early, a mid, and a late, and the flowers kind of cross over each other, and that will lead to better pollination, better success, plumper blueberries. When you're planting your blueberries, you can do them 2 feet apart, 3 feet apart, 4 feet apart. I plant mine a lot closer together. They also like acidic soil, but that's not something you have to over worry about. They grow in a wide range of soil, but once they're in, you can give your blueberries a drink of acidic water-soluble fertilizer like Miracle-Gro acid, I think it's called Mere acid, or get any kind of acidifier and just give it a dose of acidity basically. Just follow the instructions on whatever product that you're using and they'll appreciate that. And over time you give them a little bit of that acidic boost, once a year or something like that, and your blueberries will get into a nice range of acidity. So now blackberries, blueberries, they can take temperatures of like -20, -30, -40 degrees. They do perfectly fine. Same with your fruit trees. We're putting in apples and peaches right here. These trees can take -40 degree temperatures. The thing about fruit trees is they need a cold period, so many hours, and you'll have to look up the type of fruit tree, the variety. But for instance, I don't have the numbers exactly right, but let's just say an apple tree needs 40 hours of 32 degree or below temperature. If you don't have that in your zone, then your tree is not going to be able to really go dormant, managed the right way, and it's not going to produce fruit for you for the next year. So you have to have the right number of cold hours for the different fruit trees that you buy. And there's not really a lot to them, except you can buy the dwarf varieties. Those will stay smaller, or you can buy larger varieties that can get, to 20 feet tall. So you just have to decide what you want. But the most important thing that people don't know is the cold hours, and you also may need a pollinator. Check the tag on your fruit trees. These trees do not need pollinators. They're self-pollinating. However, if you have two varieties, they tend to pollinate better and you get more fruit. So just keep that in mind. Even though something is self-pollinating, sometimes having that extra variety, different variety, will help with pollination and just getting more fruit. And finally, when we come over here, we come over to the figs. Figs are wonderful. They're actually not fruit, they're inverted flowers, so you're eating a flower. So here in Maryland, in New Jersey, a little bit north of Jersey, it's kind of on the border of your fig trees surviving above ground. So Chicago hardy figs have survived in my garden here in Maryland, but it's possible because fig trees can't take the freeze like your blueberries, your peaches, your apples, all those plants. So it's possible that the wood above ground freezes through, dies off, but the roots stay intact. But the new growth on many varieties will come through in the spring, in the summer, and then you're still going to get figs. But you may want to wrap your fig trees. I have done that in the past. If you're not buying the Chicago hardy fig, you may have to wrap the plants because they're good for zone 7, which I'm in. When you go to some other figs, they like it a little more south. They like going into Georgia, you know, North Carolina. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that the upper wood could die off if you get consecutive days of, you know, 20-degree, really, you know, freezing temperatures in the lower teens. But you can wrap them in burlap, you can wrap them in roofing paper. That will protect the roots. I mean, that will protect the upper wood. And that's a way to get a bigger tree and get more fruit, or more flowers in the case of figs, than letting it die off and then have to regrow. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'll be doing planting videos, but again, the planting's pretty basic. Just dig a hole big enough to support the root ball, granular fertilizer in the bottom, mix it through, keep them watered. They should do really, really well. But fall is the time for planting figs, blueberries, blackberries, and fruit trees. Thanks for watching, and please check out my YouTube channel, or I'm sorry, please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.